putting an end to identity politics. This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.
Greetings and salutations. You are tuning in to the Kevin Jackson Radio Show. I am Brett Segal, the Disgruntled Millennial, broadcasting to you live from my safe space down here in Northern Florida, where I am free from your bigotry, racism, hatred, microaggressions, and patriarchy. Today we are here with Colin Flaherty. We are discussing black on white crime. I know it's not something you hear about because, you know, the leftists start to chortle on about racism and institutional racism and white supremacy and Nazism and all this kind of stuff. But one of the things that we rarely get a chance to talk about and hear about are, because the media basically ignores it, is black on white crime. Now, we were just talking about when I was sent to a mainly black school because my mom wanted us to have a little bit more diverse education. It was one of the only places where they had magnet schools. Come to think of it, that was one of those things where you couldn't get in the quote white part of town. You couldn't get a magnet school where hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars were funneled into communities on behalf of the other side of town, so that kids could have an upbringing dealing with the arts and all this good kind of stuff. And I had never experienced real racism until I had gotten to that point, until I had gotten into that area. I was basically, I wouldn't say I was targeted, but let's just say that black kids are not taught about racism in the way that white kids are taught about racism. It was all too many times I heard white boy, cracker, honky just on a daily basis, and nobody said anything about it. Nobody said anything about it. There was this one experience where I can remember that I was being taunted by this black girl in class. I'll never forget her name. Her name was Tarina King. I will never forget her because she had a chip on her shoulder about me and about me being white. And I was maybe one of 4 or 5 white kids in the class. Everyone else was black or Hispanic. And she just kept on just harping on me. Oh, white boy, this, cracker, that. Nobody said a word about it. Our white teacher didn't say a word about it. And then I just got fed up. I was just like, like what's good for the goose, I guess, as much as a second or third grader could think at the time, what's good for the goose is what's good for the gander. If she's going to sit here and talk about my whiteness, I stood up and I said, "Why are you doing this, you black bee?" And I swear to God, every head in the room turned, the moment it came out of my mouth, I was like, oh my God, that felt absolutely terrible. But guess what? Even after weeks and weeks of being taunted by this girl about my race, I'm the one that got in trouble. I was the one that got sent to the principal's office. Colin Flaherty, let's talk a little bit about that, because I know you've been told stories about this exact kind of thing. Well-intentioned parents who send their white kids to black schools and the outcome isn't exactly as they intend.
Howard Stern talks about that exact experience he had in 9th grade. His parents sent him to a black school, and he experienced violence, harassment, threats, going to school, going home from school, in school. I've done over 100 stories on my channel, on my Facebook page. People write me letters saying, "Colin, this is what happened to me." And the worst letters come from the white kids who go to black schools, and the worst time of the year is February, Black History Month. That's where the anti-white hysteria has raged to a fever pitch. And this isn't just, if you weren't the victim of violence, I would say you are a very lucky one, because every other white kid I know that went to a black school had a horrific, violent experience. Most of the kids, so I grew up with, say I grew up with 30 kids. Half of them went to the Catholic school where I went. The other half went to a public school, which was black by the time we got there. And of the 15 kids who went to that black school, 13 of them dropped out. They couldn't handle the violence to school, from school, in school. And all 13 of them have since been living this life kind of in the gray zone of petty crime, drug abuse, drunk driving, that kind of stuff.
All right.
And it ruined their lives. And this is happening all the time. For a white parent today, if you're a white parent, if you send your kid to a black school, I don't have any problem in calling that child abuse.
You know what? To be honest, these days, sending your kid to public school in general, to me, I think is also a form of child abuse too, because
so many homeschoolers are figuring that out.
Yeah, what are you going to do? You're going to send your kid. Let's just say your kid is white. You're going to send your kid to a place where they're going to tell you where they're basically going to teach you that you are terrible because of the color of your skin. That's abuse. And let's take the opposite point of view. You're going to send your black kid to one of these kinds of schools where they can learn, where they have these special privileges, where they can just go around treating people poorly. Like, that's also in a sense, child abuse. They're getting it from both directions. They're getting it from every which way, and people are worse off because of it.
There's an enormous amount of black on white hostility and violence in this country. People cannot come to terms with it. A lot of it in schools. A lot of people are talking about it, but the reporters don't want any part of it.
Tell us a little bit about what you kind of coined as Philadelphia syndrome.
I coined so many phrases, I don't even remember what that one is.
Okay, let's talk a little bit then about Salon.com, because a lot of folks have tried to take you down, and as far as I know, you've struck a nerve in the extreme leftist circles when Salon starts giving you airtime. Personally, if Salon hasn't tried to take you down, you're probably not doing enough to speak truth to power.
Well, people like Salon, Village Voice, New Yorker Magazine, CNN. They've all taken their shot. Lots and lots of other people have all taken their shot. But the problem is there's too many videos. There's too many victims. There's too many 911 calls. And, my favorite one was Salon, right? Because Salon writes a story saying, I'm making up the whole thing about the knockout game, by the way.
Right.
And but I have I keep producing the videos. And they say I'm just making it all up. But my favorite thing was a guy from Illinois. He's a Salon reader, and he comes into the comment section and he goes, listen, I like Salon. I'm down with your cause. But in my town, the same thing happens. Groups of black people go out looking for white people to assault and hurt really badly. He goes, in my town, we call it polar bear hunting. So my favorite thing is Salon, from that Salon article, is that the Salon readers were giving me links to what was going on in their town. And, there's lots of reporters are victims of this, by the way. Okay, so let's say the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. That is where, it's kind of ground zero for denial, right? There have been over a dozen examples in the last 2 or 3 years of reporters going into the hood, and they are attacked or robbed on an epic level, and they never identify who they are, but this is a black thing in that area. Now, for a lot of these TV stations, they will not send a camera crew into Oakland or Richmond or other black neighborhoods in that area without sending an armed guard. But by the way, it still happens.
Which is absolutely unreal. It's the video evidence that makes it so visceral. Anybody can just spout off and start mouthing off and start saying things. But when there's so much video evidence to prove that this is a problem, it just really, it's almost like the titles of your book aren't provocative enough to make the problem clear enough to people.
A lot of people, when they experience this black on white crime and violence, they kind of think, well, maybe it just happened to me. But when the people become aware of my books and my YouTube channel, then they're aware that, oh, no, this was not just one little thing that happened to a little white kid down in Florida. This is happening all over the country in a very, very nasty way. And more people are starting to say, I'm going to start telling the truth about this, even if maybe I get in a little bit of trouble at work or something happens here or there.
Right. And another thing that I've noticed, too, is that people are so cavalier these days about the D word, discrimination. I know for a fact that human resources departments are inundated now, because you know what they teach you now? They say, if a white guy accosts you at work, if anybody says anything to you at work, just utter the D word and it'll all go away.
Black people get an advantage on SATs in school, SATs like by 250 points, and they also get their grades adjusted. to give them an advantage over other people with under similar circumstances, especially the Asian kids.
You know, at a certain point, I think this affirmative action business definitely has to go away, and people need to start being treated as equals again. It doesn't do anything for the human spirit to be treated with kid gloves, because you're always going to know that you lost fair, that if you were playing fair, that you would have lost. Now, I'm sure these guys in the football league wouldn't want to have one hand tied behind their back because maybe their race is a little bit more athletic than the other race. No, that wouldn't be fair. We got to start doing this right, folks. Colin Flaherty, I want to thank you so much for joining the show today.
Great to be in your safe space, Brett.
And this is Brett Segal, the Disgruntled Millennial. Get me at Shaq General. We'll be right back.
He won't stop until he's the top-rated radio talk show host in America.
What kind of weird competitive freak are you?
This is the Kevin Jackson Radio Show.